At Sahara West Urgent Care, they'll take care of all your healthcare needs. Routine services such as physicals, STD testing, car accident treatment, and work injuries. You name it, they do it. Please give them a call, 702-248-0554. They accept most major insurances and affordable cash pay prices, and their office visits start at just $95. Again, that number, 702-248-0554.
Pushing the limits, weekdays noon to 2 on 1400 KSHP North Las Vegas. Online at kshp.com.
The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the program's participants and do not necessarily reflect those of station staff, management, and advertisers.
It's time for the most interactive radio program in Las Vegas today. It's time for Pushing the Limits with Brian Shapiro. Brian will talk sports, politics, entertainment, and anything that matters to you. Feel free to call Brian at 702-221-7283.
You want answers? I want the truth!
Now, Pushing the Limits, here's Brian Shapiro.
All right, what's up, everybody? Happy Monday. Hope everybody had a fantastic weekend. It is Pushing the Limits time, and glad you could join us. A lot to get to. Big sports weekend, big news weekend. January 6th committee, of course, having their last official public committee meeting today. We'll get into that a little bit. We'll have some fun there, and maybe not so much fun for the Trump supporters, but we'll get to that a little bit later on in the program. Hey, you remember this name, right? Of course. How could we not forget who Michelle Fiore is? She lost her attempt to remain paid for by the taxpayers. Well, she's doing it again. She's running for office again in Nye County. A guy that is also running out there. He ran for state senator. His name is Mr. Bill Hochstetler, and he'll be joining us in studio. I know he's got some very strong opinions on Michelle Fiore running again for office, this time in Nye County. And boy, do we have a lot to get to. News standpoint, sports standpoint. Elon Musk, apparently, is he stepping down as CEO of Twitter? We'll talk about that. And then a lot of sports to get to. UNLV hoops, heartbreaking loss to San Francisco. We'll get to that. You won't find a more ridiculous ending to an NFL football game than what we saw in Vegas yesterday between the Raiders and Bill Belichick and his Patriots. I was at the Bill Belichick press conference after the game. I got plenty to talk about there. Maybe Bill didn't have a lot to talk about, but I do. And we'll get to that as well. Of course, the lacrosse team played their inaugural first game over there at Mandalay Bay. We'll get into that. So much to get to. Not a lot to talk about when it comes to the Las Vegas call. That was a snooze fest. Joining me in studio, as he always does every Monday, of course, to break all this stuff down, is Mr. Chris William Wynn. Chris, what's going on, man?
What's going on, Brian? Good to join you and PTL out there. Of course, no shortage whatsoever, Mr. Shapiro, when it comes to activity especially on the sports front here in the beautiful city of Las Vegas and the grand country that we call the United States of America. All kinds of stuff going on over the past 3-4 days. And it continues today with the Vegas Golden Knights taking on the Buffalo Sabres later on down on the Las Vegas Strip. And then, of course, Monday Night Football goes down and finishes off Week 15 with the Packers and the Rams. So much going down. And, of course, as you pointed out, some very important stuff as far as discussions going on in Washington, D.C. regarding the January 6th committee and everything that transpires there as well, too.
Will you be attending the Sabres VGK game tonight?
Absolutely.
Oh,
I will.
Will Dominic Hasek be in net? No, he's a little bit too old.
He will not be in net for the Buffalo Sabres, although he had that great old school cage face mask. Remember that, Brian?
Yes, I do.
That he sported. A lot of the goaltenders now in the NHL, they got their own personalized masks with a lot of fancy paintings and stuff going on. That's not what Dominic Hasek was rocking back in the day.
Correct.
He had the old school mask, and it did not deter him, Brian, from being one of the top goaltenders in NHL history.
So we got a lot to get to today, of course. A lot to talk about. Briefly, I'll just mention that I did go to the Desert Dogs inaugural lacrosse game. That did happen on Friday night. Pretty good crowd at Mandalay Bay. And I have to say, the game was a lot of fun. It's a very physical sport. I don't know a lot about lacrosse, but I'm learning. And
kind of surprising, too, because you're a Connecticut guy. When it comes to New England, a lot of lacrosse out there. I was never a big lacrosse guy either, Brian, just like you. And then I moved to Massachusetts before my senior year of high school. And it was big time in my high school back in the day. and in Massachusetts as well, too. But I would expect lacrosse is going to have a pretty decent following here in the Las Vegas Valley.
I hope so. I don't know, to be honest with you. I'm not sure about that. And the reason why I say that is because you have so many different options on what to do on any given night in this town, more than 10, 15 years ago. So I don't know how successful this team will be. I know that the Las Vegas Aces, of course, very successful. Also one of the best teams in the league, and they won the whole thing last year. So I don't know a lot about lacrosse, but it appears to me as we don't have a really good lacrosse team here. It doesn't look like we have a team that can score a lot of goals. So anyway, we'll have to wait and see what happens there. We'll have to wait and see, but it was fun.
And let's be honest too, right, Brian? When you think about it, a lot of the hype leading up to the beginning of this season, their inaugural season, is their celebrity ownership, right? You're talking about some of the premier athletes in their field. You're talking about people who are big time when it comes to that. And so we in Vegas, we love that as well, too. And that's been a major part, really, of this team rolling out.
Sure. No question about it. So then Saturday, woke up nice and early and to attend an 11:30 a.m. game. To attend an 11:30 a.m. game is early for me on a Saturday. So
as it is for me.
Yeah, it was the Las Vegas Bowl. And there's not much to talk about in this game. It's one of the worst college football games I've ever seen. The reason why I say that is because Florida had a 10-second left to go in the fourth quarter field goal. They ended up losing the game by I don't even remember what the score was. It was like 3 or 4 touchdowns.
It was 30-0.
Yeah.
At that point.
I mean, this was a pathetic football game. I really don't know what else to say. Florida should not have even shown up. The crowd wasn't great either, by the way. But this was not a good football game by any means. It was boring. It was a snooze fest. And I know all of us left early so we could catch the UNLV basketball game. But yeah, Chris, this was a terrible game.
Well, make no mistake about it. The storyline when it comes to the Las Vegas Bowl, and I feel kind of bad because John Sasente is a really good guy.
Sure.
Does a great job with the Las Vegas Bowl. But you had one program that was happy to be there, that was pumped to come here to Vegas, right? That was the Oregon State Beavers.
Correct.
Pac-12 team. They had a better showing as far as fan support. And then you had a team that didn't want to be here. You had a team in the Florida Gators. Usually they're in at least the discussion when it comes to a national championship or being one of the top teams in college football. That's not the case this year. You also have a situation where you have the quarterback who is basically their offensive, star, who essentially sits the game out because he has NFL draft considerations. So that combined with, what we saw transpire with that football game on Saturday just wasn't a good look for the Las Vegas Bowl. And we hope that next year, when it's a matchup between a Pac-12 team and a Big Ten team, that
right.
You get a much better matchup and you get much more support on both sides.
Correct. Yeah, it was just a terrible game. But I will say what was not a terrible game. It was a pretty good college basketball game, and it was probably the loudest I've heard the Thomas and Mack in a long time. Certainly louder than any game that was attended last year for the most part. And that was UNLV Hoops against the San Francisco Dons. San Francisco, as I told everybody before the game, I told my friends before the game, I told you guys on the air on Friday that this was going to be a tough game for UNLV. The reason why I say that is it's not just from watching a few games of them playing on television, because I do watch a lot of college basketball, but we watched the San Francisco Dons in person. They played New Mexico. Very good New Mexico team, by the way, an undefeated team. Patino Jr. is doing a wonderful job, and New Mexico played the Dons in Las Vegas, watched this San Francisco team in person. And going into this game, they were without their starting center, who's like over 7 feet tall. So right then and there, you say to yourself, okay, all right, maybe UNLV has a nice little edge there, but the Dons have some really good guard play. They've got guards who can score, who are quick, who can handle the basketball, who can create their own shot. But UNLV took care of the ball pretty well, and they looked pretty good for most of this game. They were in control for most of the game until the final 4 or 5 minutes. And that's when there was some game pressure put on UNLV. A couple of the guards from San Fran made some shots. They made some tough shots. I'm not going to say there were wide open looks. They were contested shots, and the guards stepped up and they made some big plays. UNLV missed a couple shots. Harkless is a very, very talented shooter. He had a good game, but he missed some key shots down the stretch. So did Gilbert. And it was just one of those games, and this is basketball, right? This is basketball sometimes. We're down the stretch in some games. All it takes is a few shots, a few certain situations to go your way, and all of a sudden the tide turns. UNLV had an 11-point lead, and they blew the lead. Not because I thought their shot selection was bad, not because I thought the defensive intensity changed at all. you have to give San Francisco a lot of credit. They made some huge threes down the stretch, including one with about 6 seconds to go, a contested three that was NBA range that gave them the lead. So I didn't like Gilbert's shot at the buzzer. You're down 2. You probably want to take the first good shot you have. I thought, and even though you have 6 seconds left and it was a decent look, I think you really need to take that ball to the basket. You want to take the first good look you have. I didn't think it was a great look, but nonetheless, I think this is not necessarily a bad thing for UNLV. I don't think this is a bad thing. And the reason why I say that is because this undefeated, aura about you. You're going into conference play next week. You lose that first game. You don't want to lose it. But I think moving into conference, they're not invincible. And I think they'll be better. I know they play Southern Miss, a pretty good Southern Miss team on Thursday.
It was a UNLV team that flat out thought they already won the basketball game, Brian, but there was still 3 minutes left in the basketball game. That's essentially what happened here. They already thought they won. You got to finish things off. Look, I get it. For the first 37 minutes, they played well, and they were the better team, and they showed, in my opinion, that they were the better team. The final 3 minutes was not good whatsoever. I don't understand. I'm going to put some of this on Kevin Kruger as well, too. I don't understand why Mwaka is not in that game late in that basketball game. He's just better than the other kid. The other kid fills in. I don't want to jack up his last name, but the other big kid that they put in there, he's essentially a defensive replacement, and that's his thing. But Milwaukee is a better basketball player, should have been in the game late in that basketball game. So Kevin Kruger gets a little bit of criticism, I think justified, in the last 3 minutes of this basketball game. Keyshawn Gilbert, not a good basketball game as well, too. Did not play well at all. He's going to be, if not the best player on the team, is probably going to be Harkless, who's going to be the offensive go-to guy on this team. But he's going to, at the very least, be the second best offensive threat on this team when you talk about Keyshawn Gilbert, and he did not have a good basketball game whatsoever. So those things to go along with, obviously the 9-0 run that the San Francisco Dons made there down the stretch was the difference in this basketball game. And yes, I would concur with you, Brian. I don't necessarily think it's any kind of backbreaker in any way, shape, or form. It's a loss that they take to a decent Division I college basketball team in the San Francisco Dons, and we'll see how they react to it as they look to bounce back against Southern Miss on Thursday.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens here. But I think I certainly think that UNLV is going to be just fine. I think the basketball team is going to be okay. The reason why I say that is because of how good they are defensively. I know that there's some things that Kevin Kruger would have liked to have seen his team done a little bit better. There's no question about that, particularly down the stretch. But with that being said, San Francisco's a decent team. They're third or fourth probably in the West Coast Conference. They're a pretty good team. BYU right there with them. And then, of course, you have St. Mary's and Gonzaga. But San Francisco is always usually one of the top 4 teams in the West Coast Conference, which is a pretty darn good conference, by the way. So I tend to think that they'll be just fine. And this loss could actually help them a little bit. They have a good Southern Mississippi team coming into the Thomas and Mack Center on Thursday. So we're going to have to wait and see how that plays out. But, good basketball game. It was exciting. It was fun to watch down the stretch. Pretty good product, 2 decent teams. And that usually makes for a pretty good game. And it was. And then after the UNLV game, of course, we headed out to T-Mobile Arena to catch the Vegas Golden Knights.
Wait, Brian, you're saying there was more on Saturday?
There was.
We got after it again?
There absolutely was, Chris. And the Vegas Golden Knights were in action. And the Knights, of course, playing guest, or I should say host, to the guest hockey team that came in the New York Islanders. New York Islanders, pretty good, not a great team, but a really, really good goaltender. Yeah. And that caused some problems for the Knights, who are already struggling to score on home ice at T-Mobile Arena. What did you make of the game on Saturday night?
Yeah, so Vegas, of course, coming off that short stint where they had 2 road games in which they were, obviously successful with wins over both Winnipeg and the Chicago Blackhawks, come back into town, have some injury concerns, right, Brian? You think about this team, they are banged up
right
in some key spots, and you're talking about, missing the legs of Jack Eichel and some of these other players, Shea Theodore and some others. It was big news to get Alex Pietrangelo back in the mix. That was, of course, a very important storyline. Him coming back, the issue that he had as far as the illness with his daughter, and getting through that and being able to kind of battle through that, and then being able to come back with the team. You're talking about one of the better guys on the blue line in the NHL being able to be injected back into the lineup. So I'm sure along with a lot of Vegas Golden Knights fans out there thought this could be, an emotional boost for the Vegas Golden Knights going in this matchup against the Islanders. And apparently that necessarily was not the case. And you couple that with Logan Thompson, who's been pretty solid all year long, right, Brian? He's been essentially the number one goaltender, in my opinion, and many people's opinion that cover the team or follow the team. He is the number one guy. Did not have a good game. There's absolutely a couple of goals that he would want back. And after the game, while Bruce Cassidy, the head coach of the Vegas Golden Knights, didn't necessarily address it head on in the press conference, there were comments that he had made apparently either after or right before some other period of time over the weekend where he talked and praised, obviously, the Islanders goaltender and the saves that he made, right. and basically, projected that against Logan Thompson, his goaltender. It was perceived as a slight to Logan. It was perceived as a criticism to Logan, and rightfully so. And to Logan Thompson's credit, he took it in a way where he's going to use it as fuel. He's going to look at it from a standpoint of constructive criticism, right, that coaches engage in. And so, therefore, you didn't have a great game from Logan Thompson, and they still struggle to put goals in the back of the net, right, Mr. Shapiro, when it comes to the Vegas Golden Knights, when they're on home ice. It's kind of puzzling to a lot of us. We'll see if they can right that ship tonight as they take on another Eastern team in the Buffalo Sabres down at T-Mobile Arena.
How are the Buffalo Sabres this year?
They're a decent squad, but they're not, again, pretty much on the same level of the New York Islanders when it comes to, you look at the totem pole in the Eastern Conference of teams that are expected to be contenders for a Stanley Cup out of the Eastern Conference.
Yeah.
They're not one of the better teams in the NHL, but again, it's Jack Eichel's former team. It's a team that has done a high-profile deal, obviously getting Jack Eichel, that has the likes of Alex Tuck and some other pieces there in Buffalo that used to play for the Vegas Golden Knights. So that's going to add into the intrigue a little bit to this matchup tonight when Buffalo comes to town.
Yeah. So looking forward to the game tonight. And before we get ahead of ourselves, I guess we already have with the game tonight. Of course, we got to talk a little bit about the Raiders matchup yesterday against Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots. So, as I've been saying for the last several years, Derek Carr, to me, is not a very good quarterback. He's not a top 10 quarterback, and I know some people put him top 15. He shows flashes of brilliance, but until the end of the game yesterday, I mean, he really was terrible. They couldn't get anything done in the second half. They get off to the 17-3 lead, which, by the way, was not Derek Carr. Okay, Derek Carr was not the reason why they were up 17-3. But, you're up 17-3, and then at halftime, Bill Belichick, being the coach that he is, they make some adjustments, and Derek Carr couldn't get a first down. He couldn't complete a pass. So after all this, and you're thinking to yourself, oh, my God, are they going to allow the Patriots to march down the field and score? They did again and again. Derek Carr, of course, throwing that pick to start the second half. The pick six certainly didn't help. And the Raiders were very fortunate to have an opportunity, and I'll give Derek Carr credit there. Great throw, great pass, very, very close to the out of bounds sideline. And the referees didn't have conclusive evidence to say that he was out of bounds, so they call it a touchdown. They tie the game. And then you're thinking to yourself, at least I'm thinking to myself, and I think just about everybody else is thinking to themselves, okay, overtime. We're going to go to overtime. Patriots have the ball. They'll either take a knee or who knows, maybe a Hail Mary pass or something like that. And that ending of that game was an ending that I've never seen before. You usually see an ending like that when a team is down 7 or they're down 1 or whatever, and they're desperate. But for whatever reason, a lateral pass was an attempt back at their quarterback. And it ended up being 6 points for the Raiders, and that's it. Game over, and the Raiders win by 6. Bill Belichick after the game was not a very happy camper. Okay, let's just put it that way. He was not a very happy camper. And I went to the press conference after the game, and the reason why I went is it's Bill Belichick. I wanted to see what the Patriots had to say. Obviously, you have a quarterback in Zach Miller that was stunned, visibly shaken, upset. And remember, he was also the guy, and listen, I'm not putting it on him, but he was the guy who could have made that final tackle to put the game in overtime. And again, that's not his job to tackle guys. So but he put that upon himself, But Bill Belichick mumbled throughout the press conference 2-3 words. He doesn't want to give anybody sound bites. He was just Bill Belichick, after the game. but I witnessed it in person firsthand. And I tell you, I have video of it and audio, and I didn't even want to play it because the audio was so bad. It's like, we made mistakes. This is Bill Belichick at his press conference. Made mistakes. We made mistakes. Bill, what happened on that last play? Made a mistake. We made mistakes. That's like, he does it intentionally to piss people off, and he's just a jerk. Doesn't want to give anybody any real answers. And I can tell you right now, from what I've heard, is that he gave it to the locker room after the game. He was very angry, rightfully so, and he gave it to those players. And a lot of the players were like, you're going to have to ask coach. You're going to have to ask coach. They didn't want to say the wrong thing. A visibly very upset team and a very upset Bill Belichick, rightfully so, the way that game ended, Chris.
So we thought the most talked about game of the NFL week would be obviously that Colts-Minnesota game that was just historic on Saturday. That, of course, hold my beer, said the New England Patriots and the Las Vegas Raiders, as you had that wacky ending yesterday in that situation. You talked about Derek Carr and his performance and how it affected this game. Let me tell you something else too, Brian. Josh McDaniels is not a good NFL head coach. With respect to time management, he was atrocious. With respect to second half adjustments, he is not good. In spite of that, Raiders were able to win this football game.
Yep.
But make no mistake about it, the Raiders still definitely have issues. They're still on the outside looking in with respect to any type of playoff situation. It'd be an absolute long shot if they do make the playoffs. But you're referencing that game, and obviously the last play, it was an opportunity. You had Stevenson coming home, right? Kind of a cool story. He gets a chance to play in Las Vegas in front of his family. It was great to see his mother there on the sidelines with the old school T-shirt with the multiple pictures of her son. That those old school, remember those NBA T-shirts they used to have with Larry, your guy Larry Bird,
yep,
and my Detroit Pistons. Well, she was sporting that. And then he's running down the field. Look, and you have option, go to overtime and have a chance to win the game. No, I've decided I'm just going to throw it back to my wide receiver, Jacoby Myers, and see what he can do with it. And maybe we can wheel and deal here and somehow find a way to win this game in regulation. And immediately throws it to Jacoby Myers, right? And Brian, you and I have that we talk about all the time, that situation where I was betting in the NCAA tournament on Villanova, and I needed one basket, Mr. Mark. Mark, I needed one basket in the NCAA tournament, and there was a player that just turned around basically and went the opposite direction and didn't shoot the basketball. Well, you got Jacoby Myers in the game yesterday, catches the lateral, and then decides to do a little twirly-whirly thing, go backwards, and then decides he's going to chuck the ball across the field backwards towards Mac Jones, his quarterback. Chandler Jones picks this thing off. And then what Brian alluded to, obviously, is Mac Jones, kicking himself in the backside after the game, saying, I should have made the tackle.
Yeah, it's not on him.
Really? Is that what we're going to talk about after that play? We're going to talk about a quarterback trying to tackle a 260-pound, a defensive player that's running to the end zone. But I digress. Raiders take it the distance, score the touchdown, win the football game in one of the more bizarre finishes in NFL history. They're already talking about Brian giving it a nickname and all this kind of thing. It was a wild finish. The Raiders won the football game, but it masks a lot of the issues that the Raiders have with respect to getting better as a football team and getting better as a franchise.
Well, the thing about Jacoby is he's a veteran. He should know better. Like, what a stupid bonehead play. I mean, that's not a mistake. That's catastrophic. This was a game for the New England Patriots, make no mistake about it, that they had to win. I mean, they are still very much, or were very much, in the playoff picture. I don't know what kind of chance they have now, but not as good as they had 24 hours ago. This was a game that they had to win, right? And you saw that in them in the second half. You saw that desperation. You saw that effort, and I give them credit for that. But you got to go to overtime there. What are you doing? You're not even necessarily in a position to throw a Hail Mary. Why not even just take a knee? Like, I don't understand what he was doing there. It's a bonehead play. You want to get to overtime. Listen, maybe the Raiders still win in overtime. Very possible. I don't know. But just a bonehead play. And New England going home, and that's a long plane trip home.
And one more quick tidbit too, right, Brian?
Yep.
It's another win for a Bill Belichick disciple, essentially, right?
Right.
I was, of course, being a Detroit Lion fan, I get to witness a few years ago where, Matt Patricia got a win on Monday Night Football against the Patriots. And the whole narrative is, oh, he's letting his former assistants win the game. Obviously, seeing how the end of that game transpired, that wasn't the situation. It was just a wacky play at the end.
Yes.
But it is kind of funny to see how it works out, where Bill Belichick ends up taking an L to one of his former assistants.
Yeah, listen, I think I speak for many when I say I'm sick of the New England Patriots winning. So it's nice to see them. I was actually happy to see an angry Bill Belichick after the game. He did not want to engage anybody. He didn't want to engage the media. He was visibly extremely upset. And, listen, rightfully so, right? He should be upset. That was a tragic ending to the game for Patriots fans. I know a lot of fans were not happy about that. But with that being said, the Raiders do get the W. Derek Carr still doesn't impress anybody. I know he had a couple nice throws at the end of the game, but Derek Carr as a whole had a bad football game. The defense at times looked a little soft again. They had a great first half. This is not a good Patriots offense. Defense pretty good. Offense not good. Nobody's afraid of the Patriots offense, and yet they were able to score at will in the second half and get themselves back into this football game. So I don't look at this game. It's the same Raiders team. It's nice they got a W, but this was not a game that was important to the Raiders. If this was a game with playoff implications on the line, and then Derek throws some of those passes in the fourth quarter, then I think I give them credit where credit is due. I know they won the football game, but not in convincing fashion. It was the weirdest end to an NFL football game that perhaps you will ever see. Seems like we have a lot of those games in Las Vegas. It's strange. A lot of the fans actually were leaving before that play even happened. I don't know how you could leave a football game when it looks like it's going to go into overtime in the NFL, but a lot of fans did. Guess they could lie and still say they were at the game when they saw that play, but I was.
Brian, checking the Pushing the Limits Facebook live feed. Johnny Lane chimes in. He agrees with you regarding Derek Carr.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, New England decided to run the Colonel Clink Dipsy Doodle, and it didn't work. Carr looked like crap the entire game. He needs to take control of the offense late in these games. I would concur with that as well, too.
Yeah.
Look, quarterback's going to get, hey, we know the deal. Quarterback's going to get most of the blame when you lose. You're going to get some of the credit when you win. You're the marquee guy on the team. And so with Derek Carr, look, I mean, it is kind of fascinating, though, because you think about guys who are talked about as quarterbacks and who are just lambasted in the NFL. There's two guys that come to mind. It's Derek Carr with the Las Vegas Raiders, and it's Kirk Cousins in Minnesota with the Vikings.
Yeah. So we'll continue to talk some sports maybe a little bit later on in the show, but this is a big news day. The January 6th Commission had their final public meeting. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about what that meeting was about, and are they actually referring criminal charges to Donald Trump and some of his associates for what took place on January 6th? We'll give you the answer to that coming up next. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back right after this. You're listening to Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
Hey, everybody, are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premium Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super. Hero, that is. Because why be a sub when you can be a hero? Stallone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.
Look, it's impossible for the average person to find a great attorney out there. There's so much misinformation. Now, let me introduce you to former Chief Deputy District Attorney Thomas Moskal. He was Las Vegas's top DUI prosecutor for years. He prosecuted the most high-profile DUI cases in Clark County. No one knows more about DUI law in Nevada. Just Google it. If you get charged with DUI, whether it's a misdemeanor or even more importantly, a felony, you need Thomas Moskal representing you. His relationships with the prosecutors and judges and his knowledge of DUI law to work for you. So give him a call now or text him at 702-848-5555. It's your life and liberty that's at stake. Don't wait. Call now. That number again, 702-848-5555. Hey, everybody, it's Brian Shapiro from Pushing the Limits. I want to tell you guys about Sahara West Urgent Care and Wellness. They're conveniently located on the southwest corner of Sahara and Jones. They're open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., and Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. At Sahara West Urgent Care, they'll take care of all your healthcare needs. They offer routine services such as physicals, STD testing, car accident treatment, and work injuries. You name it, they do it. They have on-site x-ray, EKG, ultrasound, and labs. They treat chronic conditions such as asthma, blood pressure, diabetes, and more. They also offer general wellness exams, treatments such as testosterone enhancement and cancer screening. They're located on Sahara, 6125 West Sahara Avenue. Their number is 702-248-0554. And the best part, they accept most major insurances and affordable cash pay prices, office visits starting at just $95. And I'm also a client. So please give them a call, 702-248-0554.
As a 3-time international award-winning restaurant, Joe's New York Pizza uses only the freshest and best available ingredients. From giant slices of hand-tossed pie to calzones, strombolis, fingers, and wings, Joe's serves all your favorites. Stop in for a slice at one of their 2 Las Vegas locations at Paradise and Harmon or South Las Vegas Boulevard, or you can check out their menu at joesnewyorkpizzalv.com.
All right, welcome back. It is Pushing the Limits. So glad that you can join us. I hope you can join my good friends at my favorite gaming bar in Las Vegas. Of course, I'm talking about my boys at Jackson's Bar and Grill. December promos are pretty cool. So today, if you head on over to Jackson's, you earn 200 points on a slot machine. You get a free bottle of wine. On Sundays, you earn 200 points. You get $50 in free play. Tuesdays, 10 times points all day. Some restrictions do apply. Great food, great atmosphere. I know C. Wynn likes a little Jackson's Bar and Grill, right? We were there, about a week ago?
Not about a week ago, yeah. You know me. I'm not afraid to partake in a little gaming action when it comes to heading over to Jackson's and doing that thing. So, no question about it. I do have to contest though. It wasn't a free bottle of wine for me the last couple of times on the thing, but it didn't deter for him. I'm not bad mouthing. I love Jackson's, it's my spot, but it wasn't necessarily free. I'm not gonna say exactly how much it cost me, but
Yeah.
it was. I still have a great time when I go there.
So I have
No
to
question.
say, the big 7-footer Paul McKeskey, Mo, as they call him,
Really?
in studio. Mo is a big video poker player, so
That's
I got
awesome.
to take him over to Jackson's one of these days. The stories he shared before we get into some news, the stories that he shared about guarding Larry Bird at the Boston Garden were stories that I will never forget. He also guarded guys like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Michael Jordan in some situations, because even though he was 7 feet, the Celtics, he made a good point. They had Kevin McHale and Robert Parrish, so there were times where he was assigned to guarding Larry Bird.
Yeah.
His stories were really cool, and I really appreciated them a lot. And we'll definitely have Mo back in studio. So this is a big news day. It's a big news day. And I know that there's a lot of Republicans, a lot of people on the far right that probably don't want to talk about this for good reason. Going back to January 6th and going back to the last day that the January 6th Commission met and spoke publicly. They might meet again, but this was the last public hearing they had. And in this hearing, they referred to Donald Trump being criminally charged on 4 counts. They recommended charges were obstruction of an official proceeding, conspiracy to defraud the United States, and conspiracy to make a false statement, and inciting, aiding, or assisting in, of course, the January 6th insurrection. I mean, there were multiple people that have testified, and so much evidence to prove the fact that Donald Trump knew he didn't win the election, that he was inciting violence, that when he saw the violence going on, people pleaded, including even Fox News hosts and his friends and his family, his daughter, Jared Kushner, all people around him, maybe except for Mark Meadows, all people around him virtually were telling him to put out a video and say the violence needs to stop, and he refused to do so, even days later. What does this actually mean? It's just a referral to the FBI, to the DOJ, to say, listen, Trump and some of his associates need to be charged. We have more than sufficient evidence to prove that there were crimes that were committed. Now, whether the DOJ just decides to do that or not, I don't know. I don't want them to decide to do it a week before the election. You got to do it sooner. You got to do it in the next 6 months. The evidence is overwhelming. And yes, I do believe that the evidence is overwhelming to the extent where he should be criminally charged. Now, whether that does happen or not, I don't know, Chris. I don't know how you feel about that, but.
Well, to kind of reiterate what you said, so there is the political aspect of this, right, which is this committee and what they can do as far as on the Hill, and as far as Capitol Hill, what they can do. And then there is the legal aspect of it, right, which you talked about, Department of Justice. What, can they actually have people face consequences from a legal standpoint regarding all these issues? Today, what transpired it was a wrap-up, right? It was an opportunity for closing statements for a number of members, from Adam Kinzinger, obviously, to Liz Cheney, to Adam Schiff, to everybody that was on the committee, to kind of make their closing statements, right? And to sum up everything that they were able to gather throughout these months of this process. It was broken down into numerous categories, from exactly who was responsible to things regarding the former president of the United States, Donald Trump, as far as steps that he took. They brought up, obviously, the situation in Georgia with the Secretary of State Ratzenberger and other officials down there. The official in Arizona, who was a Republican official who did not just curtail to the former president and his administration's wishes with respect to the election. And then there was other ways in which they kind of broke down the entire situation and presented it to the American public. Now, to the point that you made starting off this segment, yes, there are a lot of Americans out there that think this is all complete BS. They think it's all just politically motivated, that it's a bunch of Democrats and lefties looking to go after the former president, even though there's, Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger are nowhere near lefties, and others who are not, I would not consider on the far left by any stretch of the imagination, that happen to be on this committee. But that being said, there is a large portion of the population that believes this is politically motivated garbage and it shouldn't be taken seriously whatsoever. So that is an obstacle that we face. To your point, also, the rubber's going to meet the road regarding the Department of Justice. They are going to hold the cards here as to whether or not consequences will be faced with respect to January 6th and what took place, whether it's the former president of the United States, whether it was, Rudy Giuliani, and a number of other individuals who were involved in some way, shape, or form to what transpired on January 6th and had some responsibility towards January 6th. And what I've contended all along, I've said it to you, and you've said it back to me, and we've talked about this, there needs to be people who face consequences for what happened. If not, if it just goes by the wayside and nothing happens at all, and the former president of the United States gets to run for president of the United States again, which to me, I can't wrap my head around that. I think this is completely, utterly preposterous and lunacy and ridiculous that this individual, Mr. Donald J. Trump, has even the ability to run for president again, much less still has the support of millions of Americans out there to get his former job that he just lost in 2020. I think is completely absurd. That being said, yes, it's all about, do people have to face consequences, Brian Shapiro? And
I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if the DOJ is going to take that extra step and charge him. But I will say this. You won't hear, on right-wing radio and right-wing echo chamber radio, some people probably won't even bring up the hearing today, and others will defend Donald Trump, as they normally do. They will continue to defend him, and they will continue to say that he didn't incite. I will say this, though, and this is not a defense to Donald Trump. This is just an actuality. It's going to be very, very difficult to charge and or prosecute Trump. I should say prosecute in any way, shape, or form. And the reason why is, I saw the former FBI director speaking on CNN a little bit earlier today about this, and he's right. He's going to have a great defense team if he is indicted on charges, if he's charged. And, he'll say that it was his political right to contest the outcome of the election. He had the right to do so. He never told anybody to commit violence. And even though he didn't act, and even though there were 4 or 5 hours that went by where he did absolutely nothing, and it took him that long just to put on any sort of video, is that necessarily a crime? It's going to be very difficult to prove that. Do I think he committed crimes? Absolutely, 100%. All I'm saying is I think it's going to be very difficult to prove beyond the shadow of a reasonable doubt in a courtroom. And I don't even know if we're going to get to that point. I don't even know if the DOJ is going to even charge him. They should. but it's going to be tough. This is going to be very difficult.
Another interesting aspect of this too, Brian, that's worth discussing is the coverage and how it's being looked at through the lens of certain media outlets. Now, this morning, obviously, I don't know how much you got a chance to check it out. I was bouncing back and forth between MSNBC and Fox News because I was interested to see how Fox News approached this. And for the most part, I was kind of surprised because they kind of took a straight ahead, straight and narrow approach to covering it. Now, there was a couple times where I had issues regarding some of the wording surrounding it. You had a couple of the commentators talking about how I don't think it would look good if a Democratic administration ended up charging the former president of the United States. I think that would be political dynamite, which is a misrepresentation of what it is. The Department of Justice is not supposed to be a political angle in any way, shape, or form for Republicans or Democrats. It's supposed to be an impartial, separate institution that would either charge somebody or not charge somebody based on evidence, right? Facts, things that are concrete that you can take a look at and you're actually going to use. It isn't an arm of the Biden administration that's looking to go out there and punish Republicans or have the back of Democrats. That's not how it's supposed to be. I understand a lot of you right-wingers out there and a lot of MAGA people out there think that when Trump was in office, that's what it was for. It was for Donald Trump to do whatever he wanted to. The Department of Justice, he could use it to protect himself. And you people are ignorant for thinking that. That's not what the Department of Justice is. So again, it was a wrong characterization made by one of the commentators over there on Fox. But
there's a shocker.
To close things out, I mean, I just think that it's there is no question about it. Like you talked about. You don't know if we all don't know yet. But if people, go from A, B to C and you start to examine evidence and you start to see things that are tangible crimes that people committed that they can be charged with, to me, this is a no-brainer that if there's going to be criminal referrals and that there's evidence to back that up, it should absolutely move forward regardless of some kind of, fake thing in people's heads that, we can't charge a former president with something like this. It would make the country look bad, or reason B or reason C. If the evidence is there, make the criminal referrals and make sure that people have to face the music for criminal activity that they've engaged in.
Yeah. If you look at what Liz Cheney said today, she said among the most shameful of this committee's findings is that President Trump sat in the dining room by the Oval Office watching the Capitol riot on television. I think that's a pretty valiant point. Imagine that. Yeah. There are people storming the Capitol, both Republicans and Democrats, with their lives being threatened. I think we all could probably agree on that lives were threatened. Hang Mike Pence. Trump knew what was going on. And for hours, he sat his butt there at the dining room table, according to multiple people that worked underneath him. Okay. They're not all lying. He just sat there enjoying what he was watching on television, refusing to put on a statement, refusing to call for, help.
Yeah.
For hours, he did that. To me, and to a sense, and I hate to relay it to LAPD, but I think in this situation I will. The Rodney King riots. If you remember the LAPD and the flack that they took, rightfully so, while people were being beaten to death on the streets. And what did LAPD do in that? And the sheriff and those that were in charge hid. What did they do? They called everybody back. Not because they didn't have the capabilities of stopping it, but they refused to do so. They didn't want to get involved. It was cowardly, and it was criminal, in my personal opinion. And there's still documentaries about the LAPD and what took place during the Rodney King riots. And there were riots here in Vegas as well. Luckily, we had law enforcement here that did a hell of a lot better of a job than they did in LA. But I bring that up because it's cowardly, but it's worse. It's criminal, right? What Trump did in a similar fashion is you have congresswomen and congressmen and brave officers, a couple of whom committed suicide, one who had a heart attack the next day. You had a woman that was trampled to death and died. Not going to even talk about the woman who was shot because she deserved it. But people died that day. Lives were forever changed that day. And if President Donald Trump immediately took action, I'm not even talking about within a minute. Let's just say within an hour, right? Took action. He put out a statement. He called the National Guard within an hour. Lives would have been saved. 140 officers were injured that day. Lives would have been saved.
Yeah.
Perhaps not as many people would have been arrested. How do I know this? Well, the committee put this information forward.
Yeah.
As soon as Trump, 5 hours later, did put out a video, there were people that testified that they stood back and they got out of there as soon as Trump put out that video. Not only would it have helped, but it probably would have saved lives. To me, that is, besides going on for months, and he still says it today, right, Chris, that he won the election in a landslide.
To this day, Brian,
Yeah.
he still stands by.
Right.
That's another thing that's just so kind of crazy about
Yeah.
this whole situation.
Right.
Today,
Yeah.
now, the former president of the United States continues to engage in bringing up the big lie.
Yeah.
They talked about the big lie today, right? The big lie is something we've all been talking about for the last couple of years, right? 2-3 years.
Yep.
And he still, as you pointed out, Brian, to this day swears by it and is a proponent of that being a fact when it is absolutely positively not a fact.
Yeah. To this day, he still does that. At this point, like I said, anybody that still supports this man, certainly not somebody that I want to be associated with. That's for sure, Chris. I think you know me pretty well, and you know my stance on that. As I do, I know yours. I hope the DOJ does something about it. I doubt it. It's going to be very difficult to prosecute a former president.
But Brian, let me push back a little bit because you talked about the things on January 6th, right? That specific day.
Mhm.
The January 6th committee, they pointed out a bunch of stuff that's nefarious regarding the former president of the United States, right? I already talked about it at the top of the segment. I brought up, obviously, the situation in Georgia, right? With the Secretary of State, Rassenberger, where he's looking for 11,000 votes and you're putting pressure on a state official in that election. The situation that happened in Arizona, right? The same thing where that official, again, a Republican, had to push back against the former president and certain individuals among his team. And then, of course, you had the scenario that was talked about also by the January 6th committee today, the fake elector situation, right?
Yep.
Where they essentially set up a bunch of fake electors that they wanted to replace the actual people that were the electors in these states. Now, look, I'm not a lawyer, Brian, and we can bring in Thomas Moskal and bring in somebody that may be an expert when it comes to this type of thing. But I would tend to think a lot of this stuff, this nefarious activity, could have some illegalities to it. I don't even know if that's a word, but there could be something that's oh so shady when it comes to all those things that the president did, and that were either leading up to the election or post-election, that January 6th they wore it, and then of course what transpired on January 6th as well too.
Yeah, I mean, listen, like I said, we're going to have to wait and see how this thing plays out.
But you're not confident. You're not confident. Do you think? Because I got to be honest with you, Brian. I am fairly confident that there's going to be criminal referrals that get carried through when it comes to the Department of Justice. And yes, that some people will have to face the music, i.e. the former president of the United States, Donald J. Trump, possibly Rudy Giuliani, possibly that attorney whose name's slipping my mind right now. That was the one that was pushing the fake electors, that plan. And then the whole situation that went down. Eastman.
Yeah.
Yes, I think Eastman's in some trouble. And then you had that situation that transpired where he wanted to appoint that attorney general, and the entire legal staff essentially from the White House was going to resign because it was so preposterous that they were going to that Trump wanted to put that guy in there, and for obvious reasons he wanted to put him in there so that he would make decisions that were unconstitutional essentially. And I gotta believe the Department of Justice, acting impartially, not with bias, not with any favoritism towards Democrats or Republicans, is going to act as people that are that just want justice done because of what transpired on January 6th and the things surrounding it.
The thing that gets me really upset, and there's a lot of things that get me upset about what took place on January 6th and these election deniers like Carrie Lake, who's a bumbling idiot, but who still thinks that she won the election. Of course, that'll never, these people will never admit they lost. But if they win, everything's just fine. They have zero credibility. They're complete idiots. But with that being said, the thing that bothers me most is that a lot of Republicans that I talk to don't think January 6th was a big deal. A lot of Republicans that I talk to say, "Oh, not a big deal. Let's move on." But yet, all they want to do is talk about Hunter Biden's laptop.
Killed,
but
they talk about it like that, right, Brian?
Or they want to talk about Hunter Biden's laptop, or they want to talk about the Black Lives Matter protest and the billions of dollars in damage. But They want to talk about everything else other than January 6th. We know that McCarthy, all he cares about is being in power. That's all he cares about is being the House Speaker, all he cares about. And he'll do anything and everything to do so, even if that means defend Donald Trump. It's terrible. So, yeah, we have 4 criminal charges, as I mentioned earlier, when it comes to Donald Trump, the ones that I named. And do I think that he will be charged by the DOJ? Very difficult. Here's my opinion on what I think is going to happen. I believe that the DOJ will eventually charge Trump with something. I don't think he'll ever be convicted. That's my personal opinion. I don't think he'll ever be convicted of a crime. I do think he'll be charged, rightfully so. Don't think he'll be convicted. Extremely difficult to convict a former president. I don't care what you did. Very difficult. So moving forward here, we know what Trump did. Don't think he's ever going to be in office ever again. I certainly doubt it. He's running for the presidency in 2024. Obviously, if he is convicted of a crime, that's not going to happen. But it's going to be interesting to see what the DOJ does. They're going to have a lot of pressure to criminally charge Trump. By the way, he could also be criminally charged with these documents that he took to Mar-a-Lago that were classified. There's a lot of other things surrounding Donald Trump.
Well, there's a lot of investigations going on, right, Brian?
Right.
With respect to the
course.
former president
Right.
that he's going to have to deal with, and that the American public's going to have to kind of reconcile in their heads.
Right.
With respect to it. It's funny because you just talked about it, how he's running for president. Like, we're still having this serious conversation about Donald Trump possibly being president again. You know what I mean? And and having a campaign and running as a Republican or as an independent, I guess, if things fall through the floor when it comes to him being a Republican. But that, just the idea that we're having this discussion in some rational way, to me, is astounding, right? That we're still addressing this in a way that we could actually consider Donald Trump being in the picture again from a political standpoint is it's kind of unreal. It really is.
It's beyond unreal that we're in the situation that we're in this country. And then the only person, I guess, right now as a Republican that can defeat Donald Trump, which I don't think he would, is Ron DeSantis. I don't know of any other Republican. I'm not saying Donald Trump will win office. I'm not saying that he's going to be, the next president again. I don't think Trump will be, but I do believe right now he is still the front runner when it comes to the Republicans. I still believe he's the front runner. And quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, that speaks volumes when it comes to the Republican Party. I was having a debate, whatever you want to call it, online with a former UNLV basketball player who's getting involved with me when it comes to politics. And we were having that discussion, a former basketball player, played for Lon Kruger. And we were having a discussion online, and he says to me, Joe Biden only released Brittany Griner so he could get the black vote. And I said, okay, let's break this down. He got 85% of the black vote in 2020. If Donald Trump is running against him today, do you think he needs to convince black voters? So number one, that makes
he's already got the black vote, right,
yeah,
Brian?
He's
already got it.
And it makes absolutely no sense.
Brittany would have nothing to do
and
with
what
it.
I say to Republicans when they say Joe Biden has ruined the country, Joe Biden has done this, I said, okay, let's have that conversation. What policies has Joe Biden put in place that, in your opinion, has ruined the country? And they don't know what to say.
No.
They don't know what to say. They don't. Now, I have a number of things that I disagree with Biden on, but I also have a number of things that I congratulate Joe Biden on with, for example, the infrastructure bill. I thought that was a great thing, bipartisan bill, some gun legislation. Certainly it's not enough, and I think Biden would admit to that. But helping our military veterans, those that are suffering health-wise, I think that there's a lot of things that you can say to yourself that Joe Biden's done some good. He's done some things that I disagree with. I also look at the economy that Joe Biden took over compared to the economy that Donald Trump took over. Trump took over a pretty darn good economy when Obama left office, but Republicans don't want to talk about that. They want to talk about all these wonderful things. Oh, the economy was great. Well, how did it work when COVID hit? How did it work then? How did Trump handle COVID? Biden took over a very, very bad economy. We have the lowest unemployment in 50 years. There are some things that could be better. There's no question about it. But again, when I ask Republicans, how did Biden ruin the country? Specifically, what policies did he put in place that you think tore the country to the ground? Silence.
Quickly, Brian, before we go to the top of the hour here, it is just so difficult and at times frustrating to get in discussions with people that are on the right or are conservative Republicans or are MAGA, especially when they want to go to the extremes all the time, right?
Yeah.
With respect to talking about Joe Biden. Look, is Joe Biden even one of the best presidents ever, or maybe even not even a good president? I can make that case. I could say it, and I'm a Democrat.
Sure.
All right. I didn't think Joe Biden was necessarily the most outstanding pick to be the president of the United States in 2020.
Yep.
But we all understand why he got elected. He got elected for a number of reasons. But a big reason is the anti-Donald Trump vote. It's the people in America that said we don't want to deal with this guy anymore. There's just too much drama, and he's got too much going on. So that was a big part of it. But we talk to MAGA people, right, Brian?
Mm-hmm.
And you talk to Republicans, because we talk to them all the time here in Las Vegas. They always want to go to the extremes. Joe Biden is the worst president we've ever had in the 2 years. He is just absolutely atrocious. James Buchanan, who? Like they want to blast him. Joe Biden doesn't even know where he is right now. He's got dementia. You know, he's completely inept and incapable of even being president. Like, really, man? Like, how are we going to have a good faith discussion with you or a serious, rational conversation with individuals that resort to going to extremes across the board? You know, even I, myself, who's not a Donald Trump, who is absolutely was adamant, was negative when it came to Donald Trump. I wasn't every single day. I wasn't saying Donald Trump is the worst, Donald Trump is this, or Donald Trump is that. I would bring up a specific thing and talk about it, and then I would have an issue with the former president.
Right.
I didn't just sit back every single day like you and I, Brian, do, and we hear Republicans and right-wingers and MAGA people just absolutely just lay into Joe Biden in the worst possible insults across the board. And it's very frustrating at times to have to deal with these individuals.
Yes, it is. I don't disagree with you at all, Chris. It is extremely frustrating. All right, so we're going to take a break. Speaking of frustrating, there's not a lot of people in this state that want to see Michelle Fiore back in power, right? Not a lot of people. Bill Hochstetler is one of them. He ran for office as a senator and as a Republican. He's also running for office in Nye County. Joining us in studio next. Yes, that's right. Michelle Fiore running for office again. We'll give a little bit of her history and explain that coming up next. Bill's going to be joining us in the studio. Take a break. Be back right after this. You're listening to Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
Hey, everybody, are you struggling to find a place behind you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? No worry, no more. Sloan's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. Located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off Greenview Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super. Hero, that is. Because why be a sub? You can be a hero. Sloan's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food.
Radio Traffic Show weekday at 1400 KSHP North Las Vegas and KSHP.com.
Look, it's impossible for the average person to find a great attorney out there. There's so much misinformation. Now, let me introduce you to former Chief Deputy District Attorney Thomas Moss. He was Las Vegas' top DUI prosecutor for years. He prosecuted the most high-profile DUI cases in Clark County. No one knows more about DUI law in Nevada. Google it. If you get charged with DUI, whether it's a misdemeanor or even more importantly, a felony, you need Thomas Moss representing you. His relationships with the prosecutors and judges, his knowledge of DUI law to work for you. So give them a call now or text them at 702-848-5555. It's your life and liberty that's at stake. Don't wait. Call now. That number again, 702-848-5555. Hey, everybody, it's Brian Shapiro from Pushing the Limits. I want to tell you guys about Sahara West Urgent Care and Wellness. They're conveniently located on the southwest corner of Sahara and Jones. We're open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., and Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. At Sahara West Urgent Care, they'll take care of all your healthcare needs. They offer routine services such as physicals, STD testing, car accident treatment, and work injuries. You name it, they do it. They have on-site x-ray, EKG, ultrasound, and labs. They treat chronic conditions such as asthma, blood pressure, diabetes, and more. They also offer general wellness exams and treatments such as testosterone enhancement and cancer screening. They're located on Sahara, 6125 West Sahara Avenue. Their number is 702-248-0554. And the best part, they accept most major insurances and affordable cash pay prices. Office visits starting at just $95. And I'm also a client. So please give them a call, 702-248-0554.
Whether you're a corporate executive, on a family vacation, or just passing through, St. George Inn and Suites will meet your specific needs. It's conveniently located near restaurants, shopping, and movie theaters. St. George Inn and Suites offers a variety of room types, 2 fabulous pools and jacuzzis, a fitness center, a free full hot buffet breakfast, and laundry facility. To make your booking, call 435-673-6661 or book online at stgeorgeinnhotels.com. You need to stop in Southern Utah? Make that stop at St. George Inn and Suites.
STN Sports is the only sports betting app you need this season. STN Sports has it all. In-play betting, mobile parlay cards, the Play Plus card to fund and withdraw from anywhere in Nevada, and the latest lines on every game. STN Sports even lets you earn rewards on every bet. Safe and easy betting from your phone or tablet. Go to stationcasinosports.com or sign up at any Station Casino, Fiesta Wildfire, or the El Cortez. Details at the sportsbooks.
The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the program's participants and do not necessarily reflect those of station staff, management, and advertisers.
All right, welcome back. It is Pushing the Limits on a Monday. Programming note for you. Tomorrow on the show, very special in-studio guest. You know him from the hit show Tanked, 10 years on Animal Planet, and I heard a rumor that they're starting that show up again. One of the most popular reality shows in the history of reality television. Brett Raymer from Tank will be joining us in studio tomorrow. He's got so many side projects going on besides his restaurant with the very so popular advertisement that Chris Wynn voiced for us. We're never going to get rid of that. But we have Brett coming in tomorrow, and we'll also have a reporter from Politico joining us talking about what this January 6th committee last hearing means. Me and Chris just discussed that. But all right, here's something else out for discussion right now, and that is Michelle Fiore, the disgraced Michelle Fiore. I say that for a number of different reasons. If she's not putting panties over her face, mocking people for wearing masks, she's slut-shaming Amy Tarkanian. Amy Tarkanian came on this show a few weeks ago. If her house isn't being raided by the FBI, listen, I don't mince words here, okay? Michelle Fiore is a despicable human being. She is despicable. In my opinion, she is a criminal. And what makes matters even worse is now she's running for office. She's trying to be Justice of the Peace in Pahrump. Yes, that's right. And the guy to talk to us about that is an applicant in Nye County, and there's 20 of them. And not only that, but of course, you know this man, Bill Hochstadler, as he ran for office as a Republican senator here in the great state of Nevada. Bill joining us right now in studio. Bill, thank you so much for being here. How are you?
Good morning, Brian. Thanks. I'm doing great.
Yeah,
Thanks
appreciate
for
being
having me.
So when you heard, of course, anytime. So when you heard for the first time that Michelle Fiore was trying to run for office in Nye County, what was your first reaction to that?
Well, I about fell out of my chair. It's not that I have anything personal against Michelle. I just think that the county could be making better choices. And I think that this whole situation was contrived. I think there's been a couple of applicants along the way. Let me give you a bit of background. This has been going on for about 4 months now. Judge Jasperson passed away in August, and in September, the county commissioners voted to not have a special election. They wanted not to let the people vote, but they wanted the commissioners to make a selection for the next JP for Department B. And we thought that would happen rapidly. It happened earlier this year with another vacancy that happened, and Judge Vito got put in within a number of days. Maybe 10 days was the decision time frame to make that happen. It was uncontroversial, but now there was 8 applicants, I believe, during the first commissioners meeting. They couldn't make a decision, to kick the can down the road, re-advertised, all kinds of things like that. Now there was 15, couldn't make a decision. Then there's 20, can't make a decision. And now they finally got to where we're on December 20th tomorrow, where they're going to make a decision. So they kept kicking the can around the road till they got an applicant that they felt comfortable
What do
with.
you think? What is your feeling on what the decision is going to be?
It's hard to say. It changes minute by minute. I get messages saying that I might be the guy. I get messages saying that that I might be considered a what they call a pro tem judge, which means it's like a substitute teacher, like a substitute judge.
Right.
They might get extra pro tems and put someone else as JP. It could go to Sheriff Sharon Worley, whose term expires this year. She didn't get elected. There's all kinds of internet controversy about that as well. People talking about why that may be happening. And then you got Michelle Fiore. You've got a guy that's in service right now as a pro tem, Mike Foley, who's doing a good job from what I hear. And maybe he should get it. And I don't have a problem with him.
Yeah. Tell me what your problems are with Michelle Fiore.
Well,
I would imagine there are many, right?
Well, here's the thing. I believe that this particular position requires somebody that has the highest integrity and moral character, and conducts themselves publicly and privately in such a way so that they don't necessarily have FBI investigations, IRS investigations, or whatever. I don't know which one of those or all of those that Michelle may have had. I've heard there have been some, and you have to be above reproach when you're going for a JP position. And I think that when you look at somebody's life, you can't necessarily determine whether they're good or bad based upon what they say. You have to look at what they do and what they've done. And if you've done some of the things that some of the applicants have done in this particular list, you have to wonder about the credibility and their ability to be a justice of the peace. Remember, the citizens are looking for an example. If somebody's going to put down a punishment or make a decision, then they have to know that the person is a just person. And if you have a character that makes you suspect to not being the best judge, then they're not going to necessarily embrace the decision.
But I want to ask you this, as a lifelong Republican, right?
Yes.
You've been a lifelong Republican.
I have been.
When you see Michelle Fiore on stage, and for lack of a better term, because I don't know what other term to use, slut shaming Amy Tarkanian, who used to be the chairperson of the Republican Party here. And then you have Mike McDonald, who I believe is a clown. I call him Michael Ronald McDonald. He is a clown. And he's up there on the stage, enabling her, laughing. And there are some people in the crowd that wanted her off the stage that thought it was inappropriate. But there were also people in the crowd when she was doing this to Amy Tarkanian that were laughing. They thought it was funny. This is what some of the Republicans in this city, this is the way they behave. And they seem to like Michelle Fiore. At least some of them do. A lot of people voted for her, even though she didn't win. As a lifelong Republican, how do you feel about that?
Well, it's what they call a firebrand. You have to be a firebrand to sometimes get that media attention. And some people crave that. They want to be in the media. So if certain people on this list, Michelle Fiore or others, make it to JP, then you can guarantee there's going to be a satellite truck sitting outside the courtroom in Pahrump on a weekly or daily basis when everything happens. And this will go on for the next few years. And we don't really want that in Nye County.
No.
I think a lot of people just look at the celebrity. They look at she's got guts. She's going to fight. She's going to fight for Trump, or she's going to do this. Well, we see where that's going today.
Yeah.
And I think the time is going to come when history is going to prove that method is not working, and we have to get our party back together. And I know you're a Democrat, or at least not a Republican.
I lean to the left when it comes to social issues, but I also vote for Republicans. The Democrat is sitting to your right, right?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
And you know what, guys, I don't have a problem with any of you, because you and I can sit down and have an adult beverage.
Even though you have an odd looking version, you look very similar to Rush Limbaugh's brother. But that's okay. I won't hold that against you, Bill. I'm just kidding.
Thank you. But seriously, I think that we have to come together as a party and get that big tent back. We've actually cut our party in half. You got people in the party who hate each other.
Yeah.
And it didn't used to be like that. And I consider myself a Ronald Reagan type of Republican. Back in the day when civility and decorum was really at the heart of what we did. And we got along with the Democrats. And, it's just one of those things that we have to really embrace and get back to the basics. Now, being a judge kind of removes yourself from that, because we're nonpartisan and we leave our politics away. We don't wear it on our sleeves.
Now, I agree with you. That's what judges should be.
Exactly.
But when you see a guy like Brett Kavanaugh hanging out at Republican events and parties with Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Stephen Miller. I mean, shouldn't he be disbarred for doing things like that?
I have to agree with you. I think it's disgraceful.
Yeah.
And so, when you're, how can you go from being a caricature of the Republican Party in the way that certain people have that are applicants for this job to being a judge? It doesn't compute.
Right.
It doesn't compute. Now, if that's what Nye County wants, that's what Nye County gets. But I'm telling you that I think here's the thing. Problem with Nye County is there's 500 people in Nye County that get all involved and wrapped around the axle in politics and try to manipulate things, make things happen the way that they want them to. And there's 44,000 or 50,000 other people that don't, that could care less. And so I think what's happening is that our commissioners and other leaders might be listening too much to the minority who's got the loudest voice. And I think that's where the problems come into Nye County. I think if you really looked at all of Nye County, there's a lot of hardworking, honest people with integrity in Nye County that want to make sure that Nye County does the right thing.
For the record, I did text Michelle Fiore. She did not respond. I said, hey, we're going to be talking about you on the show today. You might not like what we have to say about you. You're welcome to call in. But, she's a coward. So to no avail, I did not get a response from her, but that's par for the course. Go ahead.
Bill, to this situation regarding Michelle, and this is more about kind of dedication to the job, right? And taking it seriously. This was the way she commented regarding this position in Nye County and how she's approaching it. Quote unquote, I'm exploring my options, and a few community leaders in Pahrump asked me to apply. Because of time constraints, I had to put a letter of intent forward on Thursday. I'm looking forward to new challenges in my life, and this could be the newest one. In your opinion, I hear that, and it's an insinuation that it's just kind of like something I'm thinking about, but it might not be something I'm necessarily dedicated to. When you hear that and that kind of approach to someone who wants to pursue this opportunity in public office, what does that make you think when you hear something like that?
Well, it does sound a little weak and a little mealy mouth if you
Right.
think about it. And so I was, and I appreciate your take on that. I read that too, but it didn't snap into my mind that that's what that meant. It is concerning. And then the other hand, it's like the fix is in.
Mm-hmm.
Community leaders have encouraged me. Well, then that means it's already rigged and fixed. Is that the way it's going to be? And nobody in Nye County wants that to be the way that our commissioners vote. We don't want the fix to be in. We need them to really evaluate us. Now, they have this evaluation form that they're going to fill out when we all speak on Tuesday. And by the way, I hear all kinds of things about tomorrow. It's going to be a packed house, but yet they're going to make the decision. They're going to leave item number 33 to the very last part of the day. It's an 8-hour, 9-hour, 10-hour
Is the public allowed to show up and make comments?
Absolutely.
How far is that drive from here? I'm just curious.
It's about 55 miles from this location.
Boy, would I love to get up there and just bash Michelle Fiore. Am I allowed to do that?
So the meeting starts at 10 o'clock. The meeting starts at 10 o'clock. Public comment is in the very beginning, and that's about anything that you really want to talk about.
10 a.m. I can't do that.
No. But usually not about the
Right.
motions that are being considered. This motion itself might not be considered till 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, which obviously gives you plenty of time. And you can make public comment during the motion when they actually bring the item up. And
what I would do, Bill, and I'm being serious here. If I had the opportunity to do that, I don't know if I'm going to drive out there. I don't know if, but if I did, and I'm being serious now, I would take a picture of Michelle Fiore on Facebook, on social media when she put a pair of panties. Forgive me, but it's the truth. Put it on her face, mocking people for wearing masks. I would go up there and would say, "Is this the person that you want representing you in this county?" I would show that picture. I would also bring up the fact that she was raided by the FBI. That she had some very shady business dealings. This was the woman, and I would quote the comments that she said about Amy Tarkanian a few weeks ago. And at that point, if there is anybody in Nye County, no matter how much you dislike some of her opponents, that would be willing to vote for her, then they are also despicable. That is my personal opinion. And I am friends with Oscar Goodman. I love Oscar Goodman. I think he's a great guy. Last time he came on this show, he endorsed Michelle Fiore. And I told him, I said, how? Why would you endorse this woman? And his only response to me was, well, she's a family friend. That's not a good enough reason. Look at Adam Laxalt. His whole family basically didn't vote for him, except for maybe his wife. He had 14 or 15 people that didn't vote for Adam Laxalt. Just because you know somebody doesn't mean that you should vote for them. Why, at this point, help me out here, Bill. Besides Chris Wynn, who else would vote for Michelle Fiore?
You would do that, Chris?
That'd be a tough call, I have to admit.
Well,
That'd be
here's
difficult.
Here's the other thing I have a problem with. Some people go for these public positions because they need a paycheck. Now, we all know that Michelle Fiore and others have lost their paychecks recently due to not being elected, not being able to carry on. They need to stay on the government dole, and maybe there's an element of service. They want to serve the community. However, if you look at it transparently, it's like, okay, if they lose their job, they need to do something. And what are they going to do? Maybe they'll go back to school and go to law school or something like that, which I think Michelle wants to do. There's got to
be a great attorney. Yeah, very, very respected.
There's got to be other reasons besides the money to do this job. Now, here's the thing. We talked about character and, talked about looking at people at what they've done with their lives. And if you look at my life, I'm 60 years old.
Yeah.
And I don't have half the track record that some of the other applicants have as far as the things that they've done that we would consider despicable on this show. I'm married, I have children, I've led a good life. I have a good position in the medical community. And I've never been investigated by the FBI or the IRS for anything, and I'm just an honest person.
Right.
You judge a person based upon how they live their life, not necessarily what they say or what others say about them. And so that's the thing. And it's not just others saying things about somebody. It's in the newspaper. It's in the print. It's documented. As a matter of fact, some of the applicants go as far as putting in 20, 30, 40, 50 pages of documentation in what we call the backup. And
Right.
I can give you a copy of that sometime, talking about the things that they've been accused of and why they didn't do those things, or they've been exonerated or something like that. So there's always that element of innocent till proven guilty. But the fact is, I don't have to do any of that because I've never had that stuff happen to me.
Which is a good thing. I would vote. Let me be very clear on this. I would vote for you in a heartbeat over somebody like that. There's no question about that. I'd probably vote for you over a lot of Democrats as well. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, there's no question that there's some applicants for this position, Bill. You are a saint compared to some of these people that are in here. You got Cheryl, who's had some issues, the former sheriff, obviously. You got Leo, who's got issues as well, too. We're talking about things like domestic violence charges. We're talking about charges like impersonating police officers and that type of stuff going on. I mean, it's
Herschel Walker's running?
highly problematic for some of the individuals that are applying for this position of justice and peace there in Nye County. Even running, period, much less it should be in the conversation with people like yourself who are upstanding citizens.
Who impersonated the officer?
I thought that was Leo. It was one of the applicants.
It's not Herschel Walker, is it?
Was excuse me, allegedly impersonated a Las Vegas police officer to get out of a ticket.
So
allegedly.
Is Michelle Fiore going to be there tomorrow?
I would assume so. I think all the applicants are asked to speak for a minute or two to the commissioners about their virtues and why they were running, or an applicant for the job, and then let the commissioners kind of grade them on a scale of 1 to 4 or whatever they want to do to rank them.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's what I would say if I was speaking. I would say you slut shamed Amy Tarkanian. Maybe we should all slut shame you and see how you like it.
Bill brought it up, Brian.
I would look at
not just the slut shaming with Amy Tarkanian. There's a number of things with respect to Michelle Fiore from a legal standpoint she's had to deal with. There was the IRS situation. There was, I believe, also wasn't there kind of campaign contributions or something that she also had to deal with from a legal standpoint. It's not just the Amy Tarkanian stuff that a lot of Republicans, quite frankly, can dismiss. But I mean, I brought that quote up regarding this bill, and it's not necessarily just about her motivation. I think to it. Look, I'm a Democrat. I get it, but I see her and I say, okay, she wasn't able to win the governorship to the gubernatorial race, right? So she bowed out of that. She wasn't able to win the treasurer race, right? She gets beat by the Democratic incumbent in that race. So now she's okay. I'm thinking about running for justice of the peace. In Nye County, it's an insinuation, in my opinion, that you're just kind of like taking, oh yeah, maybe I'll do that. You know what I mean? Like she's not. I get the impression she's not taking it seriously, and it's not something that she's necessarily dedicated to being. That other candidates like yourself and others would be.
Bill, do you know anybody that would still support her? That are Republican do you know anybody in your inner circle that would still vote for this woman?
In my circle, I don't know anybody that would actually support her. I do know of people that might have tendencies to support her.
Why? What are their reasonings? What do they think she does so well that they would still vote for her?
Well, she probably represents and embodies some of the things that some of the folks in Nye County still believe in, and they think that that's a
Like
virtue.
what?
Well, maybe things dealing with the fraudulent election or things of that nature. If she embraces that,
So Nye County
and
thinks that most in Nye County think that the elections were fraudulent.
I don't know if most, but I think a lot
Yeah.
of people that are active
Oh,
in
boy.
politics might.
Oh, geez. I'm
And-
glad I don't live in Nye County.
Well, it's interesting. I'll put it that way. And I think a lot of people
You
are
don't believe that, right?
I don't believe that.
No.
No, but I think a lot of people are afraid to step out and believe and say that they don't believe that. See, here's the thing. For a longest time, people have been afraid to jump off the Trump train. And I'll just go out and say it. They won't jump off the Trump train, but now it's getting a little bit easier to kind of get to the edge of that door opening and kind of jump off that train.
Yes.
And more people will do it. Now, if you remember back when I campaigned for the United States Senate
Mhm.
in March of 2022, there was an article that came out in the Review Journal, part of the Las Vegas Sun, that talked about all the things that I believe in. And one of them was that I didn't believe that we need to be kissing the ring of Donald Trump.
Right.
And you could just extrapolate all
Which
kinds of
so
other
many
things from
still
that.
do
Right,
that
right.
are already in office.
And I get crucified for that. People were aggravated in Nye County. People just came up to me with disgust.
What's wrong with these people? I've never been to Nye County. What's wrong with some of these
I go
people?
to the grocery store.
What are you talking about? We were just there.
Oh, yeah,
like
that's right.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
We were
that's true.
You and I were in Pahrump. We were in a golf tournament.
That's in Nye County.
I
correct.
go to the grocery store and I get annihilated
true.
by people that feel like they need to say something to me about that. It's like, well, in my mind, I'm just going to say history. I'm going to be on the right side of history, and we're seeing that unfold right now. It might take a year or
Chris,
two.
we should go to Nye County tomorrow and say hello to Michelle Fiore.
We
What do you
should.
think?
And by the way, guys, the name of the person that impersonated the police officer was William Carnes. I don't know if Bill knows him. He's the chairman of the Nye County Republican.
So to be
Central
clear,
Committee.
not Herschel Walker.
It was not Herschel Walker.
I
I just want to clear that
just
up
want to
and throw that fun fact in there.
Just
for
want to
you.
be clear on that. That way, it's a little bit of a drive, but I appreciate Bill coming down here to do the show. It's a little bit of a drive to go down there. What do they give you, Bill? They give you like only 3 minutes to talk, right? It's public comment.
Usually, public comment gets 3. As applicants, we get 2.
Boy, I could get a lot done in 3 minutes. So let me ask you another question, because so I've been to these meetings when it comes to the Clark County School District as a reporter, when I was a reporter.
Mm-hmm.
I've never actually done public comment before. Like, what are the standards? Like, would I be able to turn around and say, we should all slut shame you? Now, I'm not saying I would do that. Like, are there standards of what you can or can't say? Like, if I turned around and I said, Michelle, you are a despicable human being, or I use the B word. I'm not saying I would do that, but I just want to know, like, where are the guidelines? Can you is it a free for all? I mean, I know you can't threaten somebody, which I don't endorse.
Right. It can be a free for all in some regards. I've heard as much as the F word being dropped, the F bomb.
Oh, geez.
And in fact,
Do you think it's going to be like that tomorrow?
Really? Well, no, probably not. But I mean, I've heard it happen before. People can call in on the phone too. And you can have that happen. You can call in on the phone and get.
See, I need a visual though. I need that picture of Michelle
Yeah.
Fiore with I need that picture to show everybody.
And
I'll have
again,
Chris, you should make a public comment too.
I'm not afraid to partake in that type of situation without question.
and as an applicant, I'm not going to go up there and say anything. I'm just going to say what I talk about my position and what I offer the county. I don't want to be the person up there doing that. That's the public. You can do that. Other people in the county can do those things. And I don't necessarily condone degrading everybody, but we really need to make sure the commissioners understand what they're doing.
People need to understand who she is, and I think if you don't at this point, then there's something wrong with you.
I think they do, and
I hope
that's
so.
the scary part. I think they do.
How far is this meeting from the Pahrump Golden Nugget? That's what I want to know, because I know
about a mile.
Chris wants to do some gambling.
It's about a mile.
Chris, make a day out of it. Go to the Pahrump meeting, do a little gambling at the Pahrump Nugget, right?
So, Bill, you talked about your situation, as far as your qualifications. Look, you're an upstanding member of the medical community, right? You have been.
Right.
What exactly are the qualifications when we're talking about someone who's running for justice of the peace?
Well, they're actually quite minimal as far as an education. You have to have a high school diploma.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to be an attorney.
Wow.
So you could be
Lauren Boebert could run.
Yes, and you
wait. Lauren Boebert's not an attorney.
You have to be
me.
a registered voter. You have to be able to vote in the county in which you live. And that's the other thing is that I believe that that the living arrangements for some of the candidates had changed recently just to accommodate this run for the position.
So you don't have to have a ton of qualifications.
No, not really.
Yeah, and so Michelle has been a Las Vegas resident, right, for a number of years. So now, but she's now registered in Nye County, so that's how she's able to run.
She's registered in Nye County.
Yeah.
In fact,
Okay.
the newspaper article that came out in Pahrump
Mhm.
had the county clerk actually come out and say that she is registered as a Nye County voter.
Yeah.
And so it really makes you. So go back to the whole thing about no one made a newspaper article about me and said Bill Hochstetler is a registered Nye County voter. People just know it or assume it.
Right.
So for them to go out of their way to say this about Michelle in the newspaper makes you wonder what's behind this. Somebody's pushing this to make sure that everybody feels comfortable.
And
with
you
it.
think it's going to be completely packed tomorrow night?
I think it's going to be very heavily attended.
How many people you think in public are going to speak? Probably a lot.
Well, there's
right?
20 candidates. I believe only maybe 15 of the candidates might show up. And then I think, you may have about 20 to 30 people maybe stand up and make a comment. Yeah.
That's not too bad.
Some of them won't take the whole
Now,
3 minutes.
when you show up, do you just put your name on a list, or how does that work?
You just show up.
You just show up,
when you want to speak, you stand up and walk to the mic, and you may be in a line of 5 people waiting for the mic to open.
Oh, that's easy. So you don't even have to do it. That's easy.
You don't
as
have
hell.
to. You don't have to sign your name. Nobody knows you're there.
Chris, I think I might do this.
You
Actually.
do have to state your name. You do have to state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Brian Shapiro from Pushing the Limits. Should I give my speech now?
You know, you might run into Brian is your very good friend Mindy Robinson might show up. She loves rolling.
Bill, do you know who she is?
I know who she is.
Oh, yes, and she loves rolling into settings like that and making a spectacle of herself.
All right. Well, here's what I want to do, Bill. And by the way, if you're just joining us, he's Bill Hochstedler. He's giving us very important information about what's going to be taking place in Nye County, particularly in Pahrump tomorrow. Michelle Fiore is officially, I guess you could call it, on the ballot, so to speak. And there's going to be some public comment tomorrow. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give my, it'll probably only be a 2-minute speech. I'll give it on the air when we come back. I'm going to give my 2-minute speech, and then Bill could give me a grade from 1 to 10, from bad to good. I'm going to give my 10-minute speech. And then I'm going to do so as well when we come back. I want to hear your 2-minute speech. If in fact we go tomorrow, it'll be like a practice session. And then Bill, when we come back, I want to ask you about some more national topics. The national front of politics and Republicans and Trumpism, the January 6th committee. I'm going to ask you who you think you would support for president in 2024. I'm going to ask you all those questions. And I'm also going to ask you about Joe Lombardo. What type of governor do you think he's going to be? So all those questions, Bill, I'm going to ask you when we come back. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back right after this. You are listening to Pushing the Limits right here at KSHP. Hey, everybody, it's Brian Shapiro from Pushing the Limits. I want to tell you guys about Sahara West Urgent Care and Wellness. They're conveniently located on the southwest corner of Sahara and Jones. They're open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., and Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. At Sahara West Urgent Care, they'll take care of all your healthcare needs. They offer routine services such as physicals, STD testing, car accident treatment, and work injuries. You name it, they do it. They have on-site x-ray, EKG, ultrasound labs. They treat chronic conditions, asthma, blood pressure, diabetes, and more. They also offer general wellness exams such as testosterone enhancement and cancer. They're located on Sahara, 125 West Sahara Avenue. Their number is 702-248-0554. The best part, they accept most major insurances for affordable cash pay prices. Office visits starting at just $95. And I'm also a client, so please give them a call, 702-248-0554. Look, it's impossible for the average person to find a great attorney out there. There's so much misinformation. Now, let me introduce you to former Chief Deputy District Attorney Thomas Moskal. He was Las Vegas's top DUI prosecutor for years and prosecuted the most high-profile DUI cases in Clark County. No one knows more about DUI law in Nevada. Just Google it. If you get charged with DUI, whether it's a misdemeanor or even more importantly, a felony, you need Thomas Moskal representing you. His relationships with the prosecutors and judges, knowledge of DUI law to work for you. Give him a call now or text him at 702-848-5555. It's your life and liberty that's at stake. Don't wait. Call now. That number again, 702-848-5555.
Hey, everybody, are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Salone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. Located at 467 East Colorado Ranch Boulevard, just off the road, half a mile east of South Lake Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super. Hero, that is. Because why be a sub when you can be a hero? Salone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.
A great time! Your entertainment destination, the South Point, invites you to experience the ultimate great time under one roof. Dancing, a live show, delicious dining at one of South Point's 11 restaurants. So much to see, so much to do. You won't know where to start first. This week, make it a South Point week and discover for yourself why the South Point is your entertainment destination for a great time.
Best of Las Vegas winners each of the last 2 years. Glazed Donuts is a family business. Taste the passion and quality in each delectable handmade donut. Experience amazing fresh donuts at Glazed Donuts, located at 6545 South Fort Apache Road on the southwest corner of Sunset. Glaze is open every day from 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. If you're interested in large orders, please call them at 702-246-2888. Follow Glaze on Facebook and Instagram, where they're showing off all their delicious treats. And check them out at glazedonutslv.com.
Experience the Artisan Hotel's themed suites, restaurant, bar, pool, and complimentary valet. During the week, the Artisan is a quiet Las Vegas retreat that's great for travelers and locals. The weekend is all about nonstop partying and the award-winning Artisan nightlife. All rooms include free gym access and Wi-Fi. The Artisan Hotel is centrally located between the Strip and downtown Las Vegas. Book your stay at artisanhotel.com. The Artisan Hotel, your unique Las Vegas boutique hotel.
All right, welcome back to this Pushing the Limit on a Monday. I don't know, I'm kind of thinking I might actually be making my first political setting tomorrow. I think it might happen. Chris might be videoing my public statement. Is that true, Chris?
I would just do it for the entertainment factor, to be quite honest with you.
Oh, trust me, I'll be entertained.
I say it tongue in cheek, obviously, because this is
Of course. I want to tell you guys about my good friends at Sahara West Urgent Primary Care. We're located right down the street here at Sahara and Jones, and they're awesome. 6125 West Sahara, no appointment needed. I was in and out of there in 20 minutes. If you need help, if you have any health concerns, sometimes it's better to go to these places than your own personal doctor. Sometimes it's hard making an appointment. Check them out. Sahara West Urgent Primary Care. They took care of me. I promise they will take care of you. Of course, we got the man in studio who ran for Senate as a Republican, Bill Hochstetler, and we got this Michelle Fiore, who's trying to remain in public life, paid for by the taxpayer, Chris. And I know all three of us, probably all four of us in this studio, probably don't want her running for office or any to remain in power at all. So there's going to be this public comment tomorrow. People can talk about a range of different issues, right? They can talk about a candidate that they don't want to be in office and represent Nye County, right, Bill?
That's right.
Is that fair?
In the beginning is public comment, and then during the motion you can talk again.
Gotcha.
You get 2 times.
Gotcha. All right. So here's what I'm going to do for entertainment purposes and perhaps serious purposes. If in fact I speak and do 2 or 3 minutes of public comment tomorrow, I'm going to pretend right now that I'm making public comment, and you guys can on a scale 1 to 10 say good or bad. Fair enough?
Sure.
Okay, here we go. So this is the woman that some of you are considering voting for to represent you in Nye County. This is a picture of Michelle Fiore with panties on her face. She is the one who put this on social media. The reason why she did this during the heart of the pandemic was to mock people for wearing masks. That was at the time when people were dying in our hospitals, okay? Over 1 million people have died of COVID. Our hospitals were filled to capacity, and she was making a mockery of people wearing masks. Is this the person that you want to represent you, who was raided by the FBI, who just lost an election, and instead of blaming herself or blaming Michael McDonald, she decided to not only blame someone who used to be the chairperson of the Republican Party in Amy Tarkanian, but slut-shamed her and said if you give her a couple of drinks, her panties come off. Is this the person that you want representing you? Are these the moral values that you would support? It doesn't matter if you like some of her policies, and it doesn't matter if you don't like some of the candidates running against her. Do you want to vote for a despicable human being, an ugly person through and through who should not represent anybody? Do you want her to remain in public life? Now, if you want a sideshow and you want media all over the place and you want it to be a circus, then go ahead and vote for Michelle Fiore. But in my personal opinion, you're no better than her. And if you are supporting her in this room right now, then I think what you should do is you should take your panties off and you should put them on your face because you're no better than her. I yield back. That's it.
I yield back. Bill, your impressions of Mr. Shapiro and him addressing the fine citizens of Nye County.
Very forceful. I would have to say probably effective. I would have to say to the point. I personally wouldn't be as harsh as you were, but
well, you're a nice man. I'm clearly not.
We're a First Amendment organization, right? We can do these things, and I just yeah, you're right. I am a nice guy.
Can I put you on the spot?
Sure.
Because I know you're a nice guy, and I know you're not going to say any of the things that I said. But if you had 2 minutes to speak about Michelle Fiore, what would you say?
Well, I could speak about a lot of the candidates besides Michelle. Let's talk about why I think this, again, this position requires a person that has good decision-making capabilities, has led their life in a good way that most people would agree is a good way to lead your life.
Yes.
Free of the scandal, free of the cloud. You don't have that cloud hanging above your head all the time. And if you have to defend that cloud that was above your head because you want to get into this office, then there's something wrong immediately. And we have a few candidates who put a lot of effort into dispelling that the cloud really isn't there. Don't look there, look over here. It's not what you think it is. And I think that in itself says a lot.
Yeah.
So if the people, the commissioners in this case are going to make the vote, I think we really have to look at that. And we have to look at it in a way that's not what's important to them, what's important to the county. And they have to look at the fact that everybody that they represent in the county is looking for them to make the right decision.
I think that's effective. It's effective by a different point of view, or I shouldn't say a different point of view, but by a different style than my style, Chris. But
I would say my take is that I'm on board with a lot of the assessments that you made, Mr. Shapiro, in your 2-minute diatribe there. Although at times but he's got his own style, Bill. I mean, he really does. It's more of a kind of a snarky, at times comedic, and sometimes it would rub people the wrong way. I don't know necessarily how people in Nye County would take that assessment from
and
Brian.
I don't care.
But I would concur on a lot of the points 110%.
Yeah. And I mean everything I said, by the way. If you vote for a woman like this, you're no better than her.
Mm-hmm.
At this stage, I'm not talking about 2016, and this is where we get to the more national stuff I want to talk to you about, you and Chris about. But I'm not talking about 2016 when people voted for, Donald Trump. I still talk to a lot of people that voted for Donald Trump in 2016. And heck, I didn't even vote for Hillary Clinton in 2016. I had no idea what we were in store for. I'm talking to people now that if Donald Trump runs now, and I don't care if he runs against Joe Biden, I don't care who he runs against, quite frankly. If at this stage you're still supporting and you're all in with Donald Trump, then there's something wrong with you. I don't care if you have an R next to your name. So I'm going to have to ask you a very difficult question now. If in fact Donald Trump is on the ticket and for the Republicans and he's running against Joe Biden, do you vote? And if you do, who do you vote for?
I will not vote for Donald Trump.
So there's a possibility you'd vote for Joe Biden.
There would be that possibility. I would hope that the Democrats would have another person run.
Agree.
I also hope that the Republicans have someone else to run, and I have
also.
people in mind for that myself.
I agree with that also. What do you make of Ron DeSantis?
Ron DeSantis came on strong, and I think here's the problem with Ron DeSantis is that he is peaking a little bit too early.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's going to have some difficulty longer down the road as other candidates come in. I think there's also some things where he's kind of going over to the Trump side a little bit to make sure that he captures some of that base. He wants to be able to get some of that base on his side. And there's going to be a war between Trump and DeSantis. I've been seeing some other people emerge that I think will be better president candidates than either one of them.
Like who?
Asa Hutchinson out of Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
Smart guy, fairly moderate, articulate, soft-spoken, but with strength. Asa Hutchinson is a good guy. I've been watching him lately, and if you're not familiar with him, he's not a household name, but pay attention to him, look into him a little bit, and I think you'll find that he can kind of carve out a space in the Republican Party and also get some support from the nonpartisans and the Democrats as well. He's a solid choice so far.
There's Asa too, Bill, and there's some other names I would like to toss at you with respect to Republicans who have a national profile. I think of Greg Abbott in Texas, right? I also think of Brian Kemp in Georgia. Right. And I also think of Tim Scott in South Carolina. Those are names I think that could absolutely come. Look, in politics, a couple of years is a long time. And so there could be all kinds of opportunities is the way I'll put it with respect to the Republican Party. But with respect to 2022, right, and the midterm elections, it's not what Republicans wanted, right? There was no red wave. It did not shake out the way that those on your side of the aisle would have liked it to do. And now there's kind of a, there's kind of a reshaping, right? There's kind of a reform of the Republican Party. Are you optimistic that the Republican Party is going to be going in the directions that are aligned with your ideals and with your principles as we move forward? And then you have an opportunity for Asa and a number of other people to make a run in 2024.
I'm very optimistic. I actually have great hopes for the Republican Party and the Republican Party has been established for many, many years until the last couple of election cycles where we've actually lost our compass. Here's the problem is that if you run your campaign on grievance politics, and I'll tell that to any of the candidates that are coming up in the 2024, and I may not be a candidate, especially if I'm a JP, I'm not going to be able to do that. If I don't make it to JP and I am a candidate for something and I haven't made a decision about what I want to do, you can't run on grievance politics. It doesn't sell. People thought it would be the ace in the hole. It doesn't work. And we have to be able to articulate and support a decision on way things that should be, come up with solutions instead of just coming up with the headlines every day and doing a speech about the headlines.
I agree with you 100% on that. And I think there are people in office like the Jim Jordans of the world who've never passed anything and all they want to do is attack Democrats. And listen, I'm sure there are people on the left that all they do is attack Republicans, but I do believe that things are still getting done. What do you make of Joe Biden and his presidency to this point? We're more than halfway through his presidency. What do you make of what he's been able to do? Or maybe you don't think he's done enough.
I don't want to come off as defending Joe Biden 100%, but you have to give the man credit that he's doing the best he can. I know he's doing the best he can. Whether it's good enough or not is a whole different story. And he's inherited a lot of issues and problems from the prior administration. He's also inherited the whole COVID thing, which is nobody's fault except perhaps China's. So we have to deal with the fact that the man is not purposely doing things to hurt this country. And if you look at, everybody looks at things on one side. You look at it through a certain lens that makes you think that he's doing a bad job. It depends on who you're listening to. But if you can step back and be objective and make good decisions, which, again, life is about making good decisions. Look at things in a way that lets you see both sides and come up with what's right for you. I don't have a personal problem with Joe Biden. The economy's in the tank and there's all kinds of things going on. And, there's just stuff happening that just isn't good. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's Joe Biden's fault.
Agree with you. And why, there are so many Republicans out there that want to blame him for gas prices. They want to blame him for everything. They want to blame him for how much your eggs, cost. And
it's back to grievance politics, Brian.
Right.
If he can turn it into a grievance, it's very simple for a Republican to say those things without coming up with a solution. I don't want to hear the problems. Tell me what the solution to the problem is. You'll never get
That's a great point too, Bill, because you talk about it like grievances. I call it culture wars, right? It's these issues that can be divisive, but aren't necessarily on the front burner or shouldn't be when it comes to Americans. Brian and I, we talk about this all the time, right? Brian, you talk about it on your show all the time about how, look, there used to be a day in America where somebody that's on the right, like yourself, or somebody like I on the left, could have discussions regarding policy, right? And having, we might have disagreements with respect to that, but we can have a civilized and honorable and rational conversation. A lot of that has gone by the wayside in the last 5, 6, 7 years since the whole MAGA thing came on and since the former president, Donald Trump, was president, because people are just so divisive now. And it's almost like just common decency has kind of gone out the window. That being said, we used to be I'm 52 years old, so I do go back to the Ronald Reagan era. You do too as well, Brian, Mark. It was just a different type of politics and approach to politics that we took, right? When it came to Democrat and Republican, when it came to America and the right wing and the left wing, it's just all different now in the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years with the approach when it comes to dealing with political issues across the board.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with negotiating and coming up with solutions that could be compromises, but at least something gets done.
So can I ask you, I'm sorry to interrupt, because we're running out of time here. I want to ask you, in speaking to that, what is a Democratic policy? I want to pick your brain that you would come to the table and disagree with and try to come to some, what is like the main issue, whether it be the Biden administration or Democrats, that they stand for today that you disagree with wholeheartedly?
Well, I embrace the ideas of the current administration as being what's best for us at this time, based upon what our leaders have decided. Remember, our leaders are the ones that are elected by the majority. So you have the Republicans that are going to be in control of the Senate, and the Democrats are still, in control of Congress, and the Democrats are still in charge of the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody comes up with the solutions to problems that are good for all people. Now, if I had to pick something, I would probably talk about our energy policies and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
I would talk about our trade with foreign nations and things that we need to do to recuperate some of our manufacturing back to the United States. Those are some of the things that really affect our economy and affect our environment. I think those two things are really, and ultimately our health. If you affect the environment, it affects our health.
Sure.
I think if you can take care of some of those issues, then everybody's life could be elevated.
Yeah, I certainly don't disagree with that. I think a lot of Democrats would agree with you on that.
Sure they would.
As well. The thing that gets me is I don't know what Republicans stand for today. I understand what Reagan Republicans like you stand for.
Right.
I understand what people like you stand for. Totally, 100%. And I could have even answered that question before Trump, maybe even, 7 or 8 years ago. I think I have a pretty good understanding of what Republicans stand for. Don't always agree with it, but I understand it. When I hear Democrats, I say, okay, I pretty much understand today what they stand for. They want equality. They want minorities to be treated the same as people that look like you and me. Same thing with transgenders or the gay community. They want equality. They want the rich to pay more in taxes. That's obvious, right? They want universal health care. They want to help poor people. Now, I know some Republicans will argue that and say, no, they don't. Well, they do, because they're for maternity leave, for example, even though, you could be having a child and not be poor, but they're for helping a woman raise a child. They are for, people that are struggling, whether it be food stamps or welfare. There's always going to be people that are going to exploit those systems. But for the most part, generally speaking, these are what Democrats have always stood for, and they still stand for those principles today. When I think of Republicans today, not Republicans like you, but Republicans today, they want to talk about freedom of speech, yet it only pertains to the government, not private business. So that makes no sense at all. They want to talk about how Democrats want to take all your guns away, which Democrats don't want to do. They're trying to end all the gun violence in this country. Yes, certain weapons, perhaps, weapons of war. And they want to talk about religious. Nobody's taking away your religious freedom. Nobody's saying that if you're a Christian, you have to be the sermon, or you have to wed 2 men or 2 women. Democrats aren't taking away your freedoms at all. But this is what I hear from Republicans. It's never about policy, like what you were just talking about. It's never about actual policy to help Americans. It's about Hunter Biden's laptop. It's about sleepy Joe Biden. It's about freedom of speech being taken away by the libtards. I never hear actual policy conversations with many Republicans. Those are my issues with Republicans today.
Right. I agree with you. I mean, again, it goes back to grievance politics, and it's the easiest thing to do. And if you're not thoughtful and careful about where you think you want to articulate a policy, and you can't articulate a policy, then just go up and read the headline that came off the newspaper this morning and get everybody riled up and clapping. And that's what I saw during the last campaign. And that's why we lost.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Chris. I would imagine you probably agree with that as well.
I would agree with that too. Yeah, and I have to say, Bill, it's funny because you're talking about like the Constitution, right? And Bill, very prepared, rolls into studio with the Constitution of the state of Nevada here. I got to admit, I do my show prep, and Brian does great show
Article
prep.
6, Section 22.
I was a little bit intimidated. I saw you bring that in. I'm like, this man came in ready to roll. But
yeah,
what was the motivation for bringing the Constitution into the studio?
This is why we're here. This is why we talk. It's about supporting the Constitution of the state of Nevada, supporting the United States Constitution, and we have to put constitutionally minded people in office, whether it's a
not Mark Levin.
No.
A great one.
No.
He mentions it a lot on his show, the Constitution.
Look, and there's so much about politics that revolve around. Did you guys know that I'm going for this JP position and it has nothing to do with the money?
I did not.
Do you know that I'm taking a severe pay cut to do that job compared to what I do now?
That's very honorable.
That is honorable.
The job pays 75, and I think somebody said it might get boosted to 96. I make more than that with what I do. I'm at a point in my life where the money's not important to me. I'm not a millionaire. I'm not rich, but I'm comfortable, and I'm comfortable enough to sacrifice a little bit of money in my lifestyle to give back to the community. I want to give to Nye County. I want to give to this state. I want to give to this country.
Well, that's great. I think that's extremely honorable. It's like a lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot of people, but some people would say, oh, look at what Donald Trump, he didn't take you're very different than Donald Trump for just about every reason. But he didn't take the $250,000 a year. No, but he took about $300 million from you that you donated to his campaign to fight election fraud. I can't stand it when people make that argument. Obviously, what you're doing is very different. And I certainly appreciate that about you. No question about it.
I just want people to understand my motivations, and it's about doing the right thing.
Right. And I think that's extremely important. And I think in this day and age, most people, sadly, when it comes to politics, don't always do the right thing. They do what's right for them. They don't do what's right for the people. They don't do what's right for their constituents. And I think that's the issue when it comes to politician and politics forever. But I think it's more poignant today than it's ever been. Do you agree with that?
Yes, it is. Yeah, I agree.
It's very sad. It's very sad. Chris, what do you think are the odds that you will be at this meeting tomorrow?
Oh, the odds are solid. You want to look at the C-Win Sportsbook. I'm thinking around minus 247. That's the number I'm putting it on.
So for those of you
that don't know,
for those of you that don't know what the hell Chris is talking about, it means he's more than a 2-1 favorite that he will be at the meeting tomorrow with me.
And depending on the outcome of the nominations, maybe I can go gambling with you guys afterwards. If I'm not a JP or anything, then maybe I can gamble with you guys. I don't know if I can if I'm actually nominated. I'll be JP elect. Maybe I can't do it. But.
Well, I will certainly be texting you tomorrow, Bill, and find out what the lowdown is. And if there is any public comment, Brian Shapiro will be up there with this lovely picture of Michelle Fiore, and I will show it to everybody.
I'll text you the address.
And then if somebody doesn't like me, or if somebody swears at me, or if somebody says get the hell out of here, I'll give them this as a gift.
And full disclosure, Bill, I don't know if you want to be around Brian Shapiro when it comes to hitting maybe a craps table at the Nugget out there in Pahrump or a couple other spots. He tends to get out there and get a little active.
Bill, the time before I was out at Pahrump, I saw somebody walking not sheep, a goat. They were walking.
Oh yes, I believe
is that a normal thing out there?
No, it's not very normal, but I think I have seen that. Yes.
What is there to do out there in Pahrump?
Well, we do enjoy the outdoors. I have to be honest with you. One of the reasons I live in Nye County, people ask me that all the time. Why in the hell are you living in Nye County?
Not for the bunny ranches.
No. But I have dirt bikes and street bikes. I love the open road.
Cool,
I love to ride.
They have a nice golf course out there.
They have a nice golf course. I have 6 motorcycles that I love to get outdoors. And even though I'm a big hefty guy, I do try to stay active. And I like, and all the houses are less expensive as well. You can buy a lot more house in Nye County than you can in, say, Clark County.
Mm-hmm.
And you have space between the houses because a lot of people park RVs, so they build them with more space. So you get a little bit more land for the money. And I like that. And it's a small town. I do like small communities. I've always lived in small communities. Well, not always, but a lot of my life. I guess my more joyful times were living in small cities like Fairbanks, Alaska, things like that. Bowling Green, Kentucky, small towns. And I do enjoy, I've lived in big places like San Antonio, and I lived in New Jersey and Boston and stuff like that too. So, and that's the other thing is I have a diverse background. I've been almost everywhere and I've lived life to the fullest. I've been to every state in the United States except Hawaii. So 49 of the states. I've been to about 20 different countries around the world. So I know a little bit about people's motivations and how people tick. And if you're stuck in one little place, you've never been anywhere, your view of the world might be a little bit limited.
Is it inappropriate to ask people who they voted for? Because I ask a lot of inappropriate questions, Bill. Can you tell me, did you vote for any Democrats in the midterm elections?
I did.
You did?
I did.
I respect that a lot.
Absolutely.
I voted for some Republicans, believe it or not.
As a matter of fact, I'll just go out and say that the way that the election turned out is exactly the way I voted.
Oh. So you did vote for Lombardo.
I voted for Lombardo.
Understandable.
I voted for Stavros. I absolutely
Stavros is a decent guy.
He is.
Yes.
He is.
I will say that I don't always agree with him, but he's a decent man.
Yep. I talked to him on the phone just a few weeks after the election. I gave him some time and some space. And yeah, he's a
decent man.
Yep. Decent guy.
You mind if I ask what Democrats you voted for?
I voted, let's see, where's the list? I don't remember
Aguilar?
everybody.
You didn't vote for Jim Marchand.
I did not vote for Jim Marchand.
Thank God.
I did not vote.
Sigal Chattah, you didn't vote for her.
No, the way the election turned out is exactly the way I voted. I predicted that months and months ago, not because I'm a psychic, but because I felt in my heart that what we had just talked about is not the winning solution for the party.
You think Lombardo's going to be a good governor?
I think he'll be fine. I know that people have issues one way or the other. I've talked to him. I know him a little bit. I think he'll be fine. I think the problem that Lombardo's going to have is he's going to end up vetoing a lot of things, and it's going to be he's going to be known as Veto Joe. That's not necessarily good or bad, but I just think that he's going to have an uphill battle with our legislature the way that they're set up, and we'll see what gets done. I hope for the best.
There are fair criticisms for Steve Sisolak. There's no question about
Sure,
that.
sure. I met
I
Steve.
think he's a decent man.
Mhm.
My concern with Joe Lombardo, his personality is that, and I hope I'm wrong on this, is that he won't listen to other people. He does it his way or the highway. I don't like the fact that if it's a journalist that doesn't like him, sometimes not giving them access to some of his events. I don't like that either. Take care of those that are close to you, but those that don't like you, we're going to treat you differently. The Las Vegas Sun, that whole story that came out with Stephen Klubeck, who was just on the show last week, about him texting Stephen Klubeck about how he wants to take down the Las Vegas Sun. He wants to put him out of business because they wrote some articles about him that he didn't like. That's what scares me a little bit about Lombardo.
Well, okay, so I know you're trying.
1 minute.
I know you're trying to egg me on for a little bit more criticism
No,
on
I'm not
Lombardo.
trying to egg you on.
No, but
Those are just my
but I'll
opinions.
give you one. I'll give you one. Is that I think that Steve needs to do a little bit more listening to his constituents, of course, but I think he also needs to take advice from other people. And I don't know that he's necessarily walled them off, but I think if he could open himself up to some constructive criticism and some constructive advice, and give him options to look at rather than necessarily it's my way or the highway, I think that will serve him well.
I agree with you on that.
And I do that respectfully, Joe.
Yep.
If you're listening or you get
Yep.
this, I like you. I just think that you need
won't
to
do my
take a little
show.
bit more advice.
He won't do my show.
Right.
He won't.
But he definitely listens, though.
I've had.
I don't doubt one minute that he listens.
He won't do my show, but it's interesting because the interview, we only have about a minute here.
Yeah.
The interview I did with Joey Gilbert, where Joey Gilbert we were just trashing each other. It was back and forth.
Just hammering
It's
each
funny
other left
because
and right.
I found out members of his campaign were sending that to people, but
Oh,
so
really?
they have no problem when I go after somebody else, but they won't come. Anyway, I want to thank Michelle Fiore for making a cameo appearance. Thank you, Michelle, for being here. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow night. I can't wait. But no, in all seriousness, Bill, Hochstedler, I always am afraid that I'm going to call you Hostedler, who's my favorite comedian. Steve Hofstadter. Your names are very similar. But Bill, you're a good man, and I appreciate you coming in. I appreciate your honesty. And we'll definitely have you on again. And hopefully me and Chris will see you out there at the meeting tomorrow. Okay,
Hey, great. Thank you.
Good to see you, Bill, as always.
Over the hump tomorrow.
All right. Let's do it. Let's do it. All right, folks. Tomorrow we've got, the man himself who did Tank. Brett Raymer will be joining us in the studio. So we'll look forward to that. Have a great day, everybody.